Welcome to my session and right before lunch. And if I would like you to, I'd like to welcome you to this two-part interactive session where we are doing a job analysis, basically analyzing the design of job ads that I extracted from some advertisements last year in order to let it simmer and give them some time to percolate out of recent memory. And I also anonymized each one because the goal is not to call out anyone's approaches to job design, but to give us food for thought on what looks like it works with this job ad, what doesn't, and then we have an exercise for guideposts on successful job design that helps with efficient workflows and staff retention. And we've all seen the library literature about burnout, overwork, and a lot of this is due to many positions being mashup roles of task realms that really shouldn't be thrown into the same position if they expect the incumbent to work fewer than 80 hours a week. And so I will actually not go through the slides. They're online. I have 80-some slides, and we only have 40 minutes, and I really would like to give most of the time for the interactive part. You have two handouts. One of them says cheat sheet, and one says session cheat sheet on one page. And then the other one is a list of numbered job postings descriptions. And so that means I have 15 job ads. And so you're welcome to choose the one. I have 15 copies of each job ad. And we could work together in small groups, maybe 2 or 3, 3 or 4 people, maybe up to 5, so that there's enough brain space for meaningful dialogue. And then I also have a Mentimeter poll with some guiding questions to serve as a structured work through a job design exercise. And then if you put in the comments, it'll do two things. The first thing is it's totally anonymous. No names, no nothing. It's just to capture thoughts, to help you type in the thoughts. The other thing it will do is I am gathering all of those in answer to each question, and that will populate my after-conference slide version where I will incorporate everything that you've put in as answers so that future readers will get some ideas on job design. And then the next one, we've all seen a lot about artificial intelligence. There seems to be a fashion of shoehorning it in everywhere. And okay, I see some nodding, knowing nods. But then my sense is that we really need to be more discerning about implementing AI and evaluating, does this even make sense in this context? And so there's another exercise that's also structured, but I don't have a sheet of AI scenarios because we're all living various AI scenarios, so there's no need for that. But it also has structured guidance questions to help work through the process of determining whether an AI implementation even makes sense, and some ethical and mechanical and usability guideposts. So for the job ads, they're all in one big stack, separated by a colorful sheet of paper. So the best thing that I can think of for efficiently organizing, handing out the job ads is we'll call out a number of the job, and then I then we will give you that job so that you can look at the description, because that will factor into the interactive exercise. Oh, thanks a bunch. Okay. So let's see, which one is this? 7. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Looking at your sheet, who would like number 1? Let's have a show of hands. Okay. What about number 8? All right. My pleasure. Anyone else for number 8? Number 9. Assessment and collection analysis librarian. All right. Thanks. Anyone else for number 9? All right. How about number 10? That was a rewrite of number 9. Apparently, maybe it wasn't filled. I just noticed that 2 of those were in the system. Okay. What about number 11, collection development and analysis librarian? All right.
Acquisitions librarian?
Which number?
Number 2. Right. Senior assistant librarian, collection and acquisitions.
Okay, no takers. All right. Collection strategist librarian, number 12. All right.
Head of acquisitions and collections. Associate college librarian and coordinator for collections.
What, no admin? Okay.
Associate director for collection management and discovery.
Come on, show administrator some love. Okay, we have a taker. Thank you. All right, collection strategist, number 13. Okay. Any other takers for number 13? All right.
Number 7, head of collections, discovery, and resource sharing.
Hello.
Oh, this is super exciting. Appreciate the other thing. And you work in
Yeah, give him an admin one.
oh, definitely.
Okay, number 14, e-resources librarian. Number 15, electronic and continuing resources librarian.
Anyone who didn't get one and wants to call out a number.
All right. Thanks a bunch. Let's see if we have these here so that they're all together, sort of
Got it, I got it.
discombobulated. So the first thing I'd like to do is an icebreaker poll. Okay, and I call this job design in your life to share your workflow experiences. And this is just one open-ended free text question. And this poll is self-paced, and it is this poll. It has the QR code. Okay, so why is the poll not showing on my screen? So where are the display settings? I think the display settings need to be adjusted to share everything that's on the screen. Maybe here? Okay, thanks a bunch. Okay. I saw them set the settings to duplicate the settings. Should work. Keep changes, yeah. And so the PowerPoint is okay. Let's see here. Thanks. All right. Thanks a bunch. Can you guys read this? Okay. All right. Since we're in the icebreaker poll, I will also move on to the artificial intelligence icebreaker poll to get us started with thinking about the various aspects of artificial intelligence. It looks like there are no new comments coming. So, and you also have this code on your session cheat sheet. This is the icebreaker number 2. And the question is, what AI use cases have you seen, utilized, designed, spearheaded, or experienced? And this is just open-ended, anything that you've encountered with artificial intelligence, either in your personal life or at work. Okay, metadata. I have a colleague doing that. Oh, contract review. That's very interesting. A rules-based usage. Right. Well, it looks like we have a good mix of AI usage, and that will factor in later as we go through the AI exercise. So the next poll is going to be for the job exercise. And again, we have the QR code and also the Menti code if you prefer to go to the slide that way. And this is self-paced. I will give this, let's say 10 minutes, so that those of you who would like to work together in groups and talk through your job ads are welcome to do so. And please answer the questions in the Menti poll, because they will also be our capture mechanism to help us gather our thoughts. And so the first couple of questions are just about what you notice about the job ads. When you imagine yourself as an incumbent in that role, what sense do you get about the library's workflows, working conditions? How many hours per week do you think the incumbent is likely to work based on the job description and the task mix that they're responsible for? And then the next part is, how would you design a job to have things more conducive to logical workflow and employee well-being in that role? Because if someone's task mix is such that they have competing priorities, and in order to get everything done, they have to work super long hours, that doesn't help with employee well-being. And it is a consideration in job design and workflow design. And many of the articles that I've read for background information talk a lot about the tension between the different task realms in each role, how it pulls people into multiple directions, and that harms organizational staff retention, and it also harms employee well-being. And I'm going to time myself to make sure we stay within the allotted time. Okay, we're down to 4 minutes. All right, well, we're seeing a lot of agreement on competing task realms and the mashup of outward-facing outreach, professional service, scholarly, and the tactical operational tasks. So now moving on to artificial intelligence. And this is the same design. It's self-paced, and the Menti code is also on your two-page session handout. Right, so some themes that are emerging are generative AI around helping organize structures for idea generation and writing, and machine learning projects, document summary. And those are all really good operational helpers to speed up large mass processing and move us forward to the next task that does require deep involvement. And I knew that the Menti code up there on the screen is too small, and that's why it's on the session handout, and that is the AI strategy exercise. And it's self-paced, so nobody has to wait for me to change the slide. All right, so it looks like we all have some input. Oh, that's cool. Someone's library's systems colleagues are working on an AI bot. What kind of AI bot? If someone is working on an AI bot, it would be fascinating to see it in the comments. So now we're seeing some use cases that make sense in the areas of license review and collection usage for renewal decisions to support new renewal decisions, and data analysis, anything mathematical because it's structured and lends itself to mass analysis, metadata review and creation for enhancing discoverability. Yes, and there are also some instances where it's hard to know what would be effective when the technologies, well, the generative AI that has gotten a lot of publicity is relatively new, and that is taking up a lot of the airwaves, but the mathematically oriented artificial intelligence has been around since 1950, and in the ChatGPT noise, that fact completely gets lost, and so that overshadows the potential usefulness of AI because everyone is thinking about what can we do to generate work output and free up the human without thinking about other more structural uses of artificial intelligence. For example, pattern recognition. If you've ever had the bank call you and say, did you make this large charge at some place you've never been to? That's based on pattern recognition, and AI has been used in banking for a long time, for example. And that has nothing to do with the flashy generative chatbots. So that crowds it out, and depending on the institutional environment, it can be the case that the long history of artificial intelligence is not really known in that institution, so everyone is being talked at about implementing some sort of usage for generative AI. But you have come up with some really great ideas for using AI in structured ways to make use of data to help you make decisions. Yes, so here's a comment about it can take more time to check the AI output than to just do the work ourselves. And that's a classic case of deciding point. Where is it reliable in the kind of output that it produces, where it would really shave off work for the human as opposed to sloppy outputs because its algorithms are not well defined enough for that particular data set to really be of help. That's a good decision point to consider in deciding whether a potential implementation even makes sense. So here's a question: do we really understand what information is being retained and used for AI training? What risk did that put us in the future? So I went to an artificial intelligence workshop less than a month ago, and there it came out that Microsoft, how many of you use Copilot? Okay, so some of you. And it came out that Microsoft does not use any individual conversations for its training data. So they have separated, they have a hard separation between individual users' interactions with Copilot and their broader training models. That's not the case with some of the more famous generative AI bots. And for any kind of confidential work, I recommend anonymizing anything. So for example, when I want to look at trends, I always anonymize my source material just to make sure that nobody is outed by accident, because all I'm looking for is patterns. I'm not looking to embarrass anybody or harm anyone. And with companies given to short-term thinking, that does pose an unknown risk. And that's a good point of consideration. Yeah, algorithmic biases. Yeah, it does require careful consideration, but some of these guideposts are useful philosophical thinking points for working through the decision. And those are also really good ideas. If we have low pressure environments, it's great to experiment because that gives us a hands-on feel what's useful and what's fluff, because there are some scenarios where it truly is fluff and a waste of time, but there are other scenarios where it's actually useful for processing large masses of data to ferret out trends or major points if you're looking at a large research study, but that's never a substitute for, if it involves reading or our own analysis, because we still have to check behind the output, because there's some things that it just misses, no matter how well we formulate the prompt. Yeah, privacy is a concern. Okay, so I will be coming around with a mic if you'd like some discussion. So what struck you the most about the job exercise in thinking through how to design a job? And the guidelines that they give us on the first slide is please share your name and your institution and use the mic.
No, you're good. I'm Delaney. I work at Olin College of Engineering in Massachusetts. We're a really small team right now, and forever. We have 2 full-time librarians and 1 part-time librarian, and that's it. And I was recently lucky enough to be part of rewriting our job description for our part-time librarian, where me and my director sat down and pulled all the parts of our job out that don't make any sense for either of us to do, and it actually made a really coherent third person. I'm in charge of all of our digital assets, as well as reserves and ILLs and a bunch of other things, and then my director is my director. But I was also managing student workers and our library of things, which falls so far outside of my job description that creating that third person, we're oh yeah, I am doing too much. We both are. This is absurd. And so reflecting on the librarian for collection and e-resources, I saw a lot of that as well, where this portfolio and position has most of my job and instructional and curriculum development on top of that. So I think that there is a lot of benefit of actually sitting down either with HR or your director and being hey, so there are parts of my job that just don't make sense anymore. And hopefully they are willing to redefine what you do and are willing to listen and maybe even have another position.
Thank you very much. Any other reflections?
I'm Stephanie, and I'm from Tennessee State University, and one of the things I noticed in a recent position that we were filling is the former employee had just taken on a lot of responsibilities based on things that they enjoyed doing and were good at, but had no connection to the job we were filling. And but there was a tendency for us to say, oh, well, we need someone who will do displays and who will lead the student book club. But what we were really hiring was a tech position to process orders. And so it gave us the same opportunity of just reevaluating, like, what's really important to this position, and the things that were being done outside of the position were important, but we needed to just realign those with other people.
Thanks. And we are actually at time. But thank you very much for coming. The polls are still open, so if you have any thoughts, they're going to be open until the end of the virtual conference. So if you have any other thoughts that occur to you later, feel free to add comments. They're totally anonymous, and I will group them together and share them with the after-conference slides following the virtual conference that's happening in 2 weeks. And thanks very much for coming. I hope you got some useful ideas, and I hope you are going to be here for lunch, and I hope you have safe travels back home from the conference. And thanks very much for helping me with the handout.
Actually, one of the things that I got actually happened to Mrs. Manager's staff, and I only have one staff. It's like define managing.
I know.
I had to end up doing everything myself.
Yeah, I've seen that where it's, yeah.